we started talking about chapter 26. We kind of did an intro. What I was trying to get you to think about was how everything that we've talked about in chapters 1 through 4, okay, how to get you to think about this foodstuffs, the stuffs that we use for our energy, is what we're needing at that cellular level to make those cells function correctly. So if we think about what we eat, okay, and like I said yesterday, it is very true. We are what we eat. And our body is, going to use this. And when we eat, we definitely term this, nutrition. That's one of those good terms that they use. And what we're doing, we're actually providing the materials that are going to be needed. Now, here's something that's kind of interesting. They give us energy. They give us the building blocks. So what is that sort of telling you right there? What does it make you think about? Number one, provide or produce energy. Does anything come to mind at the cellular level? Okay, what comes to mind?
A lot of things that we talked about.
If we think energy, think about the energy part. What comes to mind at the cellular level? Our ATP. What kind of foods do we take in? Carbs, lipids, proteins. Okay? All of those can be used for energy. Every single one of them. However, the way that we want the body to use them, carbs first, fats second, proteins last, and never if possible. Okay? So producing the energy. What about the building blocks? At the cellular level, what does this bring to mind? Amino acids. Because what is it that is the only thing that the cell can produce? Proteins. And proteins' building blocks are amino acids. Okay? That's sort of what I was trying to get you to get to yesterday, trying to get you down to the cellular level. Okay? And the chemical reactions. Do you happen to remember what I said homeostasis of the body is? Well, it's maintaining our internal environment.
Sum of all.
It's the sum of all the chemical reactions in the body. And the chemical reactions are referring to what? Well, if metabolism, homeostasis, if this is like all these chemical reactions, what types of chemical reactions do we have in the body? We can either build something up or we can break it down. Remember that? So these chemical reactions, what we're doing is we're providing all of the materials that are needed. When we look at this idea of nutrition, as we look at sort of what's taking place at the cellular level, and this doesn't show up very good from the camera. The PowerPoint doesn't, because the light is so bright. Now bear with me for a second. No matter what I do. Okay. Okay, so when we look at nutrition, we think about materials that we've got to put into the body. Those materials that we have to put into the body, we put in our sugars, we put in our proteins, we put in the lipids. Something else that we need, because we are animals, we need water, okay? Water we can't do without, okay? Other materials that we're going to need in smaller amounts, we're going to need vitamins and minerals. And then, of course, y'all remember who they are, right? Okay, USDA, they give us these little recommendations. When I was growing up, it used to be the food pyramid, okay? Now we've got the food plate, all right? Go figure. Now, one of the things that we're going to find out, we are going to find out that in our body, there are materials that we need that we term essential. That's telling us that we cannot in any way make that material in our bodies. We have to consume it in our diet. So there are going to be some amino acids, some fatty acids, just about all of our vitamins, minerals, water, and then, wait a minute, carbs? When was the last time you heard that your body could make a carb? Never, right? I'm going to show you how your body can actually make a carb. We're not plants, okay? We're not autotrophs. However, certain circumstances that are in the body, we can actually make a carb. Now, we measure the energy that's in our food. We measure it as to what we know as a calorie. It's really kilo, okay? Kilocalories. I don't really care if you get into all that information or not. We kind of know that a calorie lets us know the energy amount, right? And if you are on a certain amount of calories per day, you're going to be focused on looking at the information on the foods you eat so that you can keep that calorie count under control. Okay, we're all kind of familiar with that. So when we look at these different food sources, our carbs, which we've already talked about, okay, for the most part, they come to us from plants. Plants, except for what we find in milk, the lactose in milk. And I had somebody make a comment talking about if you go to the gym a lot or if you work out a lot, then, you know, one of the things that's good is for you to consume milk. And I got to thinking about it because I was like, okay, well, you see all those little commercials and advertisements for milk, you know, it does body good, blah, 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 people with a little milk mustache. And I'm kind of like trying to think, well, why? Okay, why are they telling me this? Well, the first thing I thought about was, okay, well, what was the sugar that's in milk? And it's lactose. Lactose is a relatively simple sugar, okay? And I guess, you know, the body can break it down for the energy. And then, of course, we've got the proteins in milk, so that's going to help with the protein. So I was like, oh, okay. So somebody did think that through, all right? Now, the carbs, we're going to get them from the plants. If y'all remember, monos, dis, polys, okay? Monos, simplest, okay? And then, of course, the simplest of those, glucose, which is the one that the body can readily use for energy. That's the one that we usually represent or talk about when we discuss the cellular respiration. The disaccharides, getting into some of the good stuff, like sucrose, table sugar, poly, those are complex. For our purposes, okay, we don't have that little parasite in our gut that breaks down cell walls. Have y'all ever squished a termite and looked at it under a scope? Oh, it is so cool. I'll try to find some and bring them in. You just simply take them, squish them, look at them, and then all these little parasites pop out of their bellies. And you see how they get to digest wood. Because what do termites do? They eat the wood and they tear stuff down, okay? We don't have that, so for our purposes, this poly, this complex, for the most part, it goes through us as fiber. The other sugars, we can help or use, or our body can take them and turn them into glucose. And we can store them, okay? We can also store some of the complex carbs as fat and pull it out for energy when we need it. When we talk about carbs in the body, when we have the poly and the di, the ones that are not the simple sugars, okay, digestion helps to break them down. We can't have those bigger sugars go directly into the bloodstream and be used. They have to be broken down. They actually have to be broken down into their mono portion. What is it that's stringing them together? For the most part, that's going to be a glucose molecule, okay? The liver can take monos, convert them into glucose when needed. So it can take that complex sugar that we have broken down into its component parts, and the liver can then change the form and turn it into what's going to be a glucose that the body can now use for energy. So when I said yesterday the liver's kind of busy, liver's kind of busy, all right? That's only one of the things that the liver's doing. When we eat sugars, for example, yesterday I gave the example of the starch and how we're only supposed to have 2 a day, okay? We only need a small amount of sugar per day, depending upon your level of activity, okay? The more active you are, the more sugar you can consume, okay? The less active you are, the less you should consume. Because believe it or not, a small amount of the sugar can provide the glucoses that your body needs for the day, all right? That the body's going to use to turn into ATP. So everything else, we're going to store it. The way that we're going to store that sugar first, the glucose, okay? The way we're going to store it first, we convert it to glycogen. We have simply taken the glucose molecule, changed it around a little bit, and made it into glycogen. And we're going to store it. Now look at this. Muscles, liver. This is short-term storage. Why? If this is the one way that the body needs to get energy, because glucose is, without a doubt, the easiest way for the body to make ATP. Okay, that is the easiest way.